The call came at 9:47 on a Saturday night. I was in my home office in Phoenix reviewing a deposition transcript when my phone lit up with Elena's name. I answered on the first ring. The background noise hit me before her voice did. Beeping, shouting, movement. Diane. Her voice was thin, wet, like she was breathing through a straw. Elena, what's happening? Listen to me. A pause, something mechanical in the background. I need you to make sure someone films tonight. The Gala. Derek is there. He's with her. My stomach dropped straight to the floor. Elena, are you? I'm in the ambulance. A long pause. Make sure someone films. The line went quiet. Not dead. Just quiet. I sat at my desk for exactly 4 seconds. Then I picked up my other phone and started making calls. I need to back up. Because if I start at that phone call, you won't understand what Elena Castellano Reyes actually built. And she built something. Over 11 months, quietly, without anyone knowing. Not even me, not fully, not until she was ready. She built the kind of case that makes opposing lawyers go pale. But I'm getting ahead of myself. I met Elena 12 years ago at Arizona State University. She was pre-law. I was already in my second year. She walked into a study room, sat across from me, opened a torts textbook, and didn't say a word for 3 hours. I respected that immediately. We became friends the way serious women become friends, slowly, through shared exhaustion and mutual respect. She eventually switched to architecture, said law was too much performance, not enough building. I thought about that line for years afterward. She met Derek Castellano at 28, at a fundraiser for a children's hospital in Scottsdale. He was 34, already running a commercial real estate development company that his father had built and he had tripled. He was handsome in that easy, unearned way, square jaw, good posture, a smile that arrived right on time. I didn't trust him the first time I met him. I told Elena that. She laughed and said I didn't trust anyone. She wasn't wrong. They got married 2 years later at a vineyard in Sedona. It was beautiful. Elena wore her mother's earrings and wrote her own vows and cried exactly once at the altar in a way that was dignified and real. I was her maid of honor. I gave a toast that made people laugh. Derek's friends drank too much. His father, a thick man from Tucson named Raymond, Beach shook my hand too hard and called me the lawyer friend all night instead of using my name. I noted that. The first few years of the marriage looked fine from the outside. Derek's company kept growing. Elena started her own architecture firm, small, focused on sustainable residential design, exactly what she'd always wanted. They bought a house in Paradise Valley, one of those sprawling properties with a pool and a guest casita and fruit trees in the yard. Elena planted a lemon tree herself in the far corner. She texted me a photo of it the day she put it in the ground. "It'll give fruit in 3 years," she wrote. "I'm playing the long game." I didn't know how true that was going to be. The first time she called me with something wrong in her voice was on a Wednesday, about 3 years into the marriage. She'd found a hotel receipt in a jacket pocket, Scottsdale Rennick Hotel, a Tuesday night when Derek said he was in Denver for a development deal. "Did you confront him?" I asked. "Not yet." Elena. "Not yet, Diane." I understood the pause. When you're a woman with assets, with a business, with a life you've carefully built, you don't move until you're ready. You don't confront with one hotel receipt. You confront with everything, or you walk away quietly with everything you're entitled to. She replaced the receipt exactly where she found it. That was the beginning. Over the next several months, she told me pieces, not all of it. She was careful about what she said out loud, even to me. But I got enough. Derek had been seeing someone, a woman named Paige Whitmore, 26, who worked in marketing at a company that did business with Derek's firm. It had been going on for a while, long enough that it was comfortable, long enough that he'd gotten sloppy. "What are you going to do?" I asked her one night, sitting on her back patio, the lemon tree already taller than it had been. She handed me a glass of iced tea, looked out at the pool. "I'm going to get everything I'm entitled to," she said, "and I'm going to make sure he can't fight it." She was calm when she said it, not cold. Elena was never cold, but settled, like she'd already decided and was just waiting for the right time. I asked her if she still loved him. She thought about it for a long moment. "I love the person I thought he was," she said. That person doesn't exist. I nodded. That was enough of an answer. What I didn't know, what Elena had not yet told me, was that she was already building the case. She'd hired a forensic accountant named Glenn Morrow, a quiet man out of Temp who specialized in financial investigations. She'd opened her own accounts and begun carefully moving her own income, her architecture firm's earnings, which were entirely separate from Derek's money, into them. She'd consulted a family law attorney in Tucson, far enough from Scottsdale that word wouldn't travel, and gotten a preliminary assessment of what she'd be entitled to in a divorce. She had photographs, she had hotel records, she had financial documents showing Derek had been funneling company expenses through personal accounts in ways that would be very interesting to his business partners. And she had me, though she hadn't told me the full picture yet. That changed the morning she called to tell me she was pregnant. I was quiet for a second. Are you okay? I'm okay, she said, and she meant it. I found out 4 days ago. Does Derek know? Yes. I chose my next words carefully. And the plan? She exhaled. The plan continues. Having his child doesn't change what he's done. It changes the timeline, and it changes what I'm entitled to. She was right about both. The pregnancy made Derek attentive in the surface-level way men like him get attentive. Buying things, making reservations, posting photos. He announced it on social media with a picture of Elena's ultrasound and a caption that said, "God is good." His friends commented heart emojis. Raymond, his father, called and cried. Mani Elena sat next to Derek during the call and smiled at the right moments and said, "Thank you," when Raymond called her a good woman. She told me about that phone call later that night. He called me a good woman, she said. You are a good woman, I told her. I know, she said. That's not the point. She was 6 months pregnant when she told me everything. We were sitting in my office. I'd asked her to come in under the pretense of updating her will, which was legitimate enough. And she laid it all out. The accountant, the attorney in Tucson, the records, the photographs, the accounts. I sat very still while she talked. When she finished, I said, Elena, how long have you been planning this? Since the hotel receipt, she said. 11 months. I looked at my friend, 7 months pregnant, composed, sitting across from my desk in a white linen dress, her dark hair pulled back, and I felt something I didn't expect. Not admiration exactly, something closer to awe. What do you need from me? I asked. She told me. The final piece was documentation of Derek's behavior during a public event while she was in documented medical distress. It needed to be time-stamped. It needed witnesses. It needed to be airtight. The Prescott Foundation Charity Gala, held every year at a private estate in North Scottsdale, was the perfect moment. Derek had already RSVP'd. He'd told Elena he was going for business. She'd smiled and said, of course. She knew Paige Whitmore would be there too. She'd confirmed it. You're going to make yourself sick, I said. Not a question. She looked at me evenly. I'm 36 weeks pregnant, Diane. I have been having irregular contractions for 2 weeks. I am not making anything happen. I'm simply not trying to stop it. I stared at her. I have a doctor I trust, she said. I have a hospital bag packed. The baby will be safe. I need you to trust me. My throat was tight. And if something goes wrong? That's why I called you first. She reached across my desk and put her hand over mine. Her rings caught the light. You'll make sure they film it. You'll make sure Derek is documented. And you'll make sure I have the best outcome possible on both ends. I looked at my best friend of 12 years. I said, give me the contact list. What neither of us planned for, what no amount of strategy could account for, was that something would go very, very wrong. The Prescott Foundation Gala started at 7. I know because I was parked 2 blocks from my office at 6:58, phone in each hand, running 2 separate operations at the same time and trying not to let my hands shake. Left phone, Elena's sister Camilla, was with Elena at the house in Paradise Valley. Camilla was 32, a labor and delivery nurse at Banner Health, and the only other person who knew the full picture. Elena had told her 3 weeks earlier. Camilla had cried for 20 minutes and then asked what she needed to do. Right phone, a woman named Trish Okafor, no relation, just a coincidence that always made us laugh, who was a freelance photographer based in Scottsdale. She did events, corporate headshots, the occasional wedding. She was already inside the Gala, credentialed as press with a camera and a phone with a timestamping app. I had also called Marcus Deal, a paralegal from my office who moonlighted as a videographer for his cousin's event company. He was outside the estate with a long lens and a tripod and instructions to document arrivals and the outdoor reception area. I had not told either of them exactly what they were documenting or why. I'd told Trish she was there to capture candid moments for a client. I'd told Marcus the same thing. They were professionals. They asked only what they needed to ask. I sat in my car and waited. At 7:14, Trish texted me. He's here. Cream suit, she's with him, red dress. I stared at the message. Get everything, I typed back. Every angle. Don't stop. At 7:22, my left phone rang. Camilla. Her contractions are 4 minutes apart, Camilla said. Her voice was level, nurse voice. I've been timing them for the last hour. I'm calling the ambulance now. My chest went tight. Is she okay? She's in pain. Her blood pressure is elevated. I don't love her numbers, Diane. A pause. But she's conscious and she's talking, and she told me to call you first. Call the ambulance, I said. Right now. Don't wait. Already dialing. I switched to my right hand and texted Trish, keep filming, do not stop no matter what. Then I got out of my car and drove to Banner Desert Medical Center. I want to tell you what it looked like from inside that Gala because Trish told me everything afterward, and I need you to understand what Derek Castellano was doing while his wife was in an ambulance. The Prescott estate was about 4 acres in North Scottsdale, the kind of property that has a name, Copper Ridge, embossed on a stone pillar at the entrance. But string lights over every outdoor surface, white linens, an open bar with a man in a vest and a serious expression, centerpieces that probably cost more than my first car. About 200 people, the kind of crowd where everyone knows someone who knows everyone. Derek arrived with Paige Whitmore at 7:11. He walked in with his hand at the small of her back, not hiding it, not performing it either, just comfortable, like they'd done this before, because they had. Paige was 26 and attractive in a polished, practiced way. Blonde hair down, red dress fitted, the kind of woman who knew exactly what she looked like walking into a room and had made peace with that knowledge. She smiled easily. She laughed at the right moments. She touched Derek's arm when she talked to him. Trish got it all. Derek worked the room. He shook hands with men whose names appeared on buildings. He laughed at things that weren't funny. He accepted a glass of bourbon and held it with the relaxed confidence of a man who had nothing to worry about. His phone was in his jacket pocket, on silent. Trish told me later that at one point, around 8:15, she watched Derek check his phone, look at it for a moment, and put it back. She couldn't see what he saw, but she noted the timestamp. At 8:09, Elena had been loaded into the ambulance. At 8:15, Derek checked his phone and put it back in his pocket. I know what was on that phone. I pulled the records later. Camilla had called him twice, left one voicemail. Texted, Derek, Elena is in the ambulance, call me. He checked the phone at 8:15, looked at it, put it back. Then he laughed at something the man next to him said. Trish caught that moment too. The laugh, the timestamp, the phone going back into his pocket. I need you to sit with that for a second. I got to Banner Desert at 8:31. The ER was busy the way ERs are always busy on Saturday nights. Too many people, not enough chairs. The particular smell of disinfectant and stress that no amount of ventilation can fully clear. Fluorescent lights that made everyone look like they hadn't slept. I found Camilla in a hallway outside a set of double doors, still in the clothes she'd been wearing at the house. Jeans, a green blouse, her hair pulled back. She had her arms crossed over her chest and her jaw tight. Where is she? I said. Inside. OB team is with her. Camilla looked at me. Her eyes were red at the edges but dry. Her blood pressure spiked in the ambulance. They're talking about an emergency C-section. The floor felt unsteady for a second. The baby, 36 weeks. The doctor said if they have to go now, the baby's odds are good. But Elena, Camilla stopped, pressed her lips together. She lost a lot of blood on the way here, Diane. More than they expected. I stood very still. This was not the plan. The plan was irregular contractions, a hospital admission, documented distress, Derek unreachable. The plan was not this. The plan was not Camilla's face looking like that. She knew the risks, Camilla said quietly. It sounded like she was reminding herself as much as telling me. I know, I said. She still knew the risks. I know, Camilla. We stood in that hallway for a long moment. The PA system announced something overhead. Somewhere down the corridor a child was crying. The filming, Camilla said. Is it happening? Yes, she nodded once. Good. Her voice cracked slightly on the word. Make sure it counts. At 9:47, Elena called me from inside that room. I don't know how she got to her phone. I don't know how she had the presence of mind to dial. The doctor told me later that her blood pressure was critical at that point, that they were preparing for surgery, that she should not have been on a phone at all. But that was Elena. Make sure someone films tonight. Derek is there. He's with her. That's what she said to me. Thin voice, wet breathing, the beeping of machines in the background. And then, I'm in the ambulance. She said it like it was a logistical update, like she was reporting her location before a meeting. I think about that phone call more than any other moment of that night. I think about who you have to be, how much you have to have decided about yourself, to call your best friend from an ambulance and give operational instructions before you ask for comfort. After she said, make sure someone films, there was a pause. And then, softer, the first time her voice changed the whole call, she said, and Diane, the baby's name is Sofia. I already decided. My eyes burned. I know, I said, even though I hadn't known. She's a good name. She is, Elena said. Then the line went quiet. Not dead, just quiet. Like she needed to put the phone down and save her energy for something more important. I stood in that hallway and pressed my back against the wall and breathed through my nose for 30 seconds until I was sure I could function. Then I called Trish. Keep filming, I said, and get me the clearest shot you have of him checking that phone. Derek Castellano left the Gala at 10:23. Marcus got him on the way out, him and Paige walking to the valet together, her hand in the crook of his arm, laughing. At 10:23, when his wife had been in surgery for 41 minutes, the valet brought his car. He opened the door for Paige. He walked around to the driver's side. His phone was in his hand. He looked at it as he got in. He saw the calls then, all of them. Camilla, the hospital, me. 17 missed calls spread across 3 hours. Marcus told me he watched Derek sit in that car for almost a full minute before he pulled out of the lot, not rushing, just sitting. Then he drove away. He arrived at Banner Desert at 10:58. By then, Sofia was already here. Derek walked into the ER at 10:58, looking like a man who had been at a gala. That's the thing I keep coming back to. The cream suit, the pocket square, the bourbon smell that reached me before he did. He looked like he'd come from somewhere nice, which he had, and he looked like a man who had a reasonable explanation for everything, which he didn't. I was standing near the front desk when he came through the sliding doors. He saw me before he saw anyone else, and something moved across his face. Not guilt, not yet, something more calculated than that. Recognition. The kind that says I need to figure out what she knows before I say anything. I'd seen that look on defendants, many times. Diane, he came toward me, and his voice had the particular quality of a man performing concern, not feeling it, performing it. What happened? Then, relief, I think. Or the version of then, relief, I think. Or the version of relief a man like Derek was capable of. She's okay? They're both. Sofia is 4 pounds 11 ounces. She's in the NICU. She's breathing on her own. I held his eyes. Elena lost significant blood. She's stable, but she's going to be in recovery for a while. He exhaled, ran a hand over his jaw. Thank God. He said it the way people say things when they want you to believe they mean it. The doctor will come out and talk to you, I said. You can wait over there. He looked at me for a second too long. Diane, I didn't have my phone on. I know, I said. Something about the way I said it made him stop. He studied my face. But I kept mine completely neutral. 12 years of litigation will do that for you. Okay, he said slowly. I'll wait. He walked to the chairs, sat down, took his phone out and stared at it. I walked back down the hallway to where Camilla was waiting. He's here, I said. Camilla looked past me toward the waiting area. Her jaw tightened. How does he look? Like a man at a gala, I said. She made a sound in her throat that wasn't quite a word. I saw Elena for the first time at 11:44. They'd moved her to a recovery room, small beige walls, the window showing a strip of parking lot and a slice of dark sky. She was in a hospital bed with the head raised slightly, an IV in her left arm, a monitor clipping her finger. Her dark hair was loose around her face. There were shadows under her eyes deep enough to look painted on. She looked like someone who had been through something. But she was awake, and when I walked in and she saw my face, she didn't ask how I was doing or whether I was okay. She said, "Did you get it?" I almost laughed. I bit it back. "We got it," I said. "Trish got everything. Marcus got the arrival and the exit. I have timestamps, multiple angles, witnesses who can place him there." I sat in the chair beside her bed. "It's good, Elena. It's really good." She closed her eyes for a second. Not relief exactly. More like the satisfaction of a calculation coming out right. "His phone records," she said. "Being pulled by Glenn first thing Monday. We already have Camilla's call log showing 3 calls to his number starting at 8:09. And he checked the phone at 8:15. Trish has the footage." Elena opened her eyes. Hurt." She paused. "They said I can see hurt." She paused. "They said I can see Sofia in an hour when she's a little more stable." "She's doing well," I said. "The NICU nurse told Camilla she's strong." Something happened to Elena's face then. It was small, a softening around the eyes, a slight trembling at the corner of her mouth that she controlled almost immediately. But I saw it. "Sofia," she said quietly, like she was trying out the weight of it. "Sofia," I confirmed. She nodded once, pressed her lips together. The trembling stopped. "Derek's in the waiting room," I told her. Her face went smooth again, back to the version of Elena she needed to be right now. "I know. Don't let him come back here yet." "I need a little more time." "Already handled," I said. She looked at me. "Thank you." "Stop thanking me." I squeezed her hand once. "You planned for 11 months and nearly died. The least I can do is manage a waiting room." She almost smiled at that. Almost. I saw Sofia for the first time through a glass window. She was in an incubator, a small warm box with a clear top, tubes and wires that looked too large for something that small. She had Elena's dark hair, just a suggestion of it, damp and fine against her tiny head. Her hands were curled into fists like she was already prepared to fight something. 4 pounds, 11 ounces. Camilla stood next to me at the glass. I heard her exhale slowly. "She looks like Elena," Camilla said. "She does," I agreed. We stood there for a while without talking. Derek got to see Elena at 12:30. I know because I was standing in the hallway when the doctor walked him back. I watched him go through the door. I stayed outside. I didn't need to hear that conversation. I knew what it would be. Derek performing the relieved husband. Elena performing the grateful patient. 2 people in a room together, both pretending, both calculating, neither one saying what was actually true. That was fine. Elena didn't need that conversation to go a particular way. She just needed Derek to believe, for a little while longer, that he was safe. What I did not expect was who came to find me in that hallway 20 minutes later. His name was Raymond Castellano, Derek's father. 63 years old, thick through the shoulders, silver hair he kept short. He had driven from Tucson when Derek called him, which meant he'd been driving for over an hour. He still had his reading glasses pushed up on his head when he found me. I'd always been cautious around Raymond. He was the kind of man who underestimated people he'd decided weren't important, and he had decided I wasn't important the first night we met. I was Elena's lawyer friend. He'd never bothered to look past that. "Diane," he said, coming toward me. His face was doing the worried patriarch thing it did at family events when something threatened the surface of things. "What happened tonight? The doctors aren't telling me enough." "Elena had an emergency C-section," I said. "She and the baby are stable. The doctor can give you more detail." He nodded, but he didn't move. He was looking at me the way he sometimes looked at people when he was deciding something. "Derek said you were already here when he arrived." "I was." "How'd you know to come?" I met his eyes. "Camilla called me." He seemed to accept that, nodded again, then, quieter. "Is Elena going to be all right?" And here's the thing about Raymond. I didn't like him, had never liked him, thought he'd spent 30 years building a son who believed rules applied to other people. But the question was real. His voice had something in it right then that had nothing to do with performance. If everything goes the way the doctors expect, I said. Yes. He looked at the floor. Good. He rubbed the back of his neck. Derek should have been here earlier. I said nothing. Raymond looked up at me. He said he didn't have his phone on him. I know what he said. Raymond studied my face. He was smarter than he let on. Cheeky, which was the most dangerous thing about him. He could read a room when he decided to pay attention. Diane, he said slowly, is there something I should know? I held his gaze for a long moment. I thought about 11 months of planning. I thought about Elena on the phone in the ambulance, giving me operational instructions in a thread of a voice. I thought about Sofia in that incubator with her fists already curled. That's a question you should ask your son, I said. Raymond's expression didn't change, but something behind his eyes did. He held my gaze for another second. Then he nodded, once, and walked away toward the family waiting area. I turned back to the hallway window and looked at nothing for a moment. That was the first crack. Not in Derek's composure. Derek's composure was still fully intact. He didn't know yet that anything was cracked. The first crack was in Raymond. A man who had been looking the other way for years, who had decided his son's behavior was someone else's problem. A man who had, for a single unguarded moment in a hospital hallway, looked at me and heard what I didn't say. I filed that away. Derek stayed with Elena for 40 minutes. When he came out, he looked better than when he'd gone in, easier in the shoulders. He'd fixed the narrative to his own satisfaction. Concerned husband, dramatic night, everyone's safe now. He stopped in the hallway and looked at his phone. I watched him type something. Later I found out he'd texted Paige. Everything's fine. We'll explain tomorrow. He walked past me toward the family area, and his hand brushed my shoulder briefly. Thank you for being here for her, he said. And he meant it the way a man means something that costs him nothing to say. I watched him go. I thought, enjoy tonight. You have about 3 weeks left of this. Then I went back to sit with Elena. She was awake when I came in. The lights were low. The monitor beeped its steady rhythm. She had her eyes on the ceiling. How did it go? I asked. Fine. She turned her head toward me. He cried a little about Sofia. Real crying? She thought about it. I think so. That part might be real. I nodded. It doesn't change anything, she said. Not hard, just factual. I know. She was quiet for a moment. Then, he smelled like bourbon and something else. Perfume, I think. She said it the same way she'd said everything else that night. Level, measured, like she was noting the weather. But her hand on the blanket curled slowly into a fist, and then released. Just once. And then it was still. 3 weeks passed. Elena came home from the hospital on a Tuesday, moving carefully, one hand on the doorframe when she stepped inside. The house looked the same. The open kitchen, the travertine floors, the back windows facing the pool. Derek had put flowers on the counter, grocery store flowers, the kind with cellophane still on them. She looked at them for a second, and then looked away. Sofia stayed in the NICU for 11 days before she came home. 5 pounds, 2 ounces by then, sleeping in the bassinet in the nursery Elena had painted herself the previous spring, a soft, warm white with a wooden mobile above the crib that her mother had shipped from Guadalajara. Tiny starfish hands, a small serious face. Derek was present in the way Derek was present. He changed diapers. He attended the pediatric follow-up appointments. He posted a photo of Sofia on social media, her small face against his chest, his eyes closed, with a caption about gratitude and miracles. Hundreds of people liked it. His mother called, weeping. I watched all of this from a careful distance. Elena and I talked every day, short calls, efficient. Glenn Morrow, the forensic accountant, had finished his second pass through Derek's business accounts and found what Elena had suspected for over a year. Derek had been routing personal expenses through the company. Dinners, hotels, a weekend in Santa Fe that he'd told Elena was a client retreat. Flights to Las Vegas, small enough individually to miss, large enough together to matter. Large enough, specifically, to matter to Derek's 2 business partners, Marcus Freed and Jonah Bellwether, who each owned 30% of Castellano Group and who had a fiduciary agreement that was very clear about personal use of company funds. Glenn put the total at $63,000 over 22 months. I read that number on a Tuesday morning in my office and sat with it for a long moment. Then I called Elena. 63, I said when she picked up. A pause. Glenn sent me the same report this morning. This changes the shape of the divorce settlement, I said. His partners will want to know. I know. This isn't just a divorce anymore, Elena. If we take this to Freed and Bellwether. I know, Diane. I stopped. Let her think. Not yet, she said. Let me get through the custody framework first. Indeed, I want Sofia's future locked down before anything touches the business. She was right. She was always right about sequencing. Okay, I said. Glenn continues building the file. We wait. We wait, she agreed. The Tucson attorney, a woman named Patricia Wren who had been doing family law for 27 years and had the kind of quiet authority that made courtrooms pay attention, flew up to Phoenix to meet with us that Friday. We met in my conference room, me, Elena, Patricia, and Glenn, on a video screen propped up at the end of the table. Elena had Sofia with her in a car seat carrier, asleep against her chest in that boneless infant way. She nursed her once during the meeting and kept taking notes the whole time. Patricia didn't blink at it. I respected her immediately. Patricia laid out what Elena was looking at. The marriage was 7 years. Elena's architecture firm, Reyes Design, had generated significant independent income, well documented, completely separate from Derek's business. The house in Paradise Valley had been purchased jointly, but Elena had contributed 40% of the down payment from her own savings prior to marriage. The affair documentation is strong, Patricia said. She had the photographs, the hotel records, the Gala footage, Camilla's call log. She'd reviewed all of it. Arizona is a no-fault state, which means the affair itself doesn't directly impact asset division. But combined with the financial misconduct, she glanced at Glenn's report on the table, it creates a picture of a husband who was systematically deceptive over an extended period. That matters to a judge. What's our number? Elena asked. Circumstances of the birth, his circumstances of the birth, his whereabouts, the phone records. We have strong grounds. Elena nodded. She looked down at Sofia, adjusted the carrier slightly. Sofia made a small sound in her sleep and was still again. When do we move? Elena asked. Whenever you're ready, Patricia said. Elena looked up. 2 weeks. I want to tell you about the moment the plan stopped being only a plan. It was a Sunday evening, about 10 days after that meeting. I was at Elena's house. We'd had dinner, the kind of easy dinner we'd been having for 12 years. Her cooking something with chicken and the lemon from the tree out back, me opening wine. Both of us talking around Sofia, who sat in a bouncy chair on the kitchen floor, looking at everything with enormous dark eyes. Derek was at what he'd called a dinner meeting. He'd been having a lot of dinner meetings. We were doing dishes, Elena washing, me drying, when her phone buzzed on the counter. She glanced at it. Her hands went still in the water. What? I said. She picked up the phone and handed it to me without a word. It was a text from a number not saved in her contacts. No greeting, just a screenshot. Instagram. Paige Whitmore's account. A photo posted 40 minutes ago. Soft lighting, a restaurant, a glass of wine, a hand on a table. The hand had a ring on it, not a wedding ring, an engagement-style ring. The caption said, "When life surprises you in the best ways and in the corner of the photo, we just barely visible, the edge of a cream jacket sleeve." My throat tightened. I looked at Elena. She was staring at the faucet. The water was still running. She hadn't moved. Elena, she turned off the faucet, dried her hands on the dish towel, one hand and then the other, slowly and completely, set the towel on the counter. Then she picked up Sofia from the bouncy chair, held her against her chest. Sofia grabbed a fist of Elena's shirt and hung on. "He bought her a ring," Elena said. Her voice was completely flat, but her jaw was tight in a way that meant something was moving underneath the surface, something she was choosing not to let out. "We don't know for certain that it's Diane," she looked at me. "We know." I stopped. She was right. We knew. She stood in her kitchen holding her daughter, looking out the back window at the pool and the dark yard and the lemon tree she'd planted herself, and her eyes were bright with something that wasn't quite tears and wasn't quite anger. "He was going to replace me," she said, quiet, almost to herself. "While I was in the hospital, while Sofia was in the NICU, he was already—" She stopped. Sofia made a small sound. Elena pressed her lips to the top of the baby's head and breathed. When she looked up, something had shifted in her face. The brightness was still there, but it had hardened into something else, something with edges. "Move the timeline," she said. "Elena, Patricia said too. Move it, Diane." Her voice was low and even. "I want the papers filed by Friday." I looked at my friend for a long moment, at the set of her jaw, at the way she was holding Sofia like a fact, like a reason. "Friday," I said. "Patricia filed Thursday morning. Derek Castellano was served at his office on a Thursday at 11:14. I know the exact time because the process server texted me a confirmation the moment the papers were in Derek's hand. I was in court when it happened, arguing a motion for a different client. My phone buzzed in my jacket pocket. I kept my face neutral, finished my argument, sat down. During the recess, I stepped into the hallway and read the confirmation text. Then I called Elena. "He's been served," I said. A pause. I heard Sofia somewhere in the background, a small sound. "Okay," Elena said. That was all. Just okay. Like I'd told her the groceries had arrived, but I knew her. I knew what that one word held. Derek called me 11 minutes after he was served. I let it go to voicemail. His message was 4 minutes long. It started with confusion, moved through anger, and ended in something that sounded like the beginning of panic. Words like blindsided, and she could have talked to me, and this doesn't have to be this way. He called again. I sent it to voicemail. He showed up at my office at 2:30 in the afternoon, still in his work clothes, buttoned down, slacks, no jacket, and told the receptionist he needed to see me. I made him wait for 20 minutes. Then I came out to the lobby. "Derek," I said, "you should call your attorney." "I don't need an attorney. I need to understand what—" "You need an attorney," I said. "That's all I can tell you. Call one today." He stared at me. The lobby had 2 other people in it, a couple waiting for their own appointment, trying very hard not to listen. "Did she tell you?" His voice dropped. "Did she know this whole time?" I held his gaze and said nothing. "Diane," something was cracking in his face. Not guilt, not yet, not fully, but the beginning of the understanding that what he thought was a private life had been witnessed, documented, and stored. "How long has she been planning this?" I picked up the folder I'd brought out with me, straightened the edges. "Call your attorney, Derek," I said. "Today." He looked at me for a long moment. His jaw worked. Then he turned and walked out. I watched him go through the glass front door, watched him stand on the sidewalk outside, the Arizona afternoon sun flat and bright above him, his phone already in his hand. For the first time since I'd known him, Derek Castellano looked small. I went back to my office and closed the door, and he found an attorney by end of day. A man named Cole Sharp from a firm in North Scottsdale. Good reputation, aggressive, expensive. I'd gone against Cole twice. Won both times. Cole called Patricia that evening. Patricia called me. "He wants to know about the financial misconduct documentation," Patricia said. "Specifically how much we have." "Tell him we have everything," I said. A pause. "Everything?" "Everything," I confirmed. Patricia was quiet for a moment. "Diane, is there anything in this file that's going to surprise me?" "No," I said, "but there's going to be quite a bit that surprises him." The call from Raymond came that night at 9:15. I almost didn't answer, but I remembered his face in that hospital hallway 3 weeks ago, the question he'd asked, the way his expression had shifted when I'd told him to ask his son. I answered. "Diane," he said. His voice was different from the Gala version, different from the hospital version, quieter, heavier, like something had been set down. "I talked to Derek today." "I know," I said. "He told me about the filing." A pause. "He told me about—" Raymond stopped, tried again. "He told me some things." I waited. "Is Elena going to be all right?" he asked. Same question as the hospital, but different weight behind it now. "That's up to a lot of people," I said. Raymond was quiet for a long moment. I heard him breathing, the sound of a television somewhere in the background. He was at home in Tucson, in the house where Derek had grown up. I didn't know, Raymond said finally. About the girl. About how long. I didn't say anything. I want you to know I didn't know. Raymond, I said carefully. Now, what do you want me to do with that? Another long pause. Nothing, he said. He stopped. Tell Elena that Sofia has a grandfather who's going to show up right, if she'll allow it. His voice was rough on the last words. That's on her. I understand if the answer is no. I stood in my kitchen in the dark, phone to my ear. I'll tell her, I said. He thanked me quietly and hung up. I set the phone on the counter and stared at the wall for a minute. Then I texted Elena. Raymond called. I'll tell you tomorrow. Nothing bad. Get some sleep. Her response came back in 30 seconds. Is Sofia's grandfather going to be a problem? I smiled despite myself. No, I typed back. I think he might actually surprise you. 3 dots appeared. Then, people keep doing that lately. I put the phone down. Outside, Phoenix was doing what Phoenix does at night, the heat finally releasing, the sky enormous and dark, the kind of quiet that feels earned after a long day. Everything was about to get very loud. Cole Sharp opened with aggression. That was his style. I'd seen it both times I'd gone against him. Come in hard, make the other side feel the weight of what they're up against, see what shakes loose. His first move was to challenge the financial misconduct documentation. He filed a motion arguing that Glenn Morrow's forensic accounting report was based on records obtained improperly, that Elena had accessed Derek's business accounts without authorization. It was a reasonable opening move. It would have worked on someone who hadn't thought of it 11 months ago. Elena's architecture firm used the same accounting software as Castellano Group. Derek had set it up that way in the first year of marriage. Convenience, he'd said, everything in one place. He had given Elena administrative access himself, in writing, via a software setup email that Glenn had preserved in its original form, time-stamped, with Derek's name on the authorization. Patricia filed the response in 48 hours. Cole went quiet for 4 days. When he came back, he tried a different angle, challenging the custody arrangement. He argued that Elena's health history, specifically the emergency surgery, raised questions about her capacity as a primary caregiver. He used the word fragile. I was in Patricia's office when she read that word out loud from his filing. Neither of us spoke for a moment. He said fragile, Patricia said. I read it, I said. Patricia set the paper down very carefully on her desk. She had 27 years of family law behind her, and she was not a woman who showed her feelings easily, but her mouth was a thin line. I'm going to enjoy this one, she said. We responded with Elena's full medical records, 2 letters from her OB team, a statement from the NICU attending physician documenting Sofia's progress, and a character declaration from Camilla, who, as a labor and delivery nurse with 12 years of experience, was able to speak with considerable authority about what constituted appropriate maternal care. We also included Elena's business records for the previous 18 months. Rhea's Design had completed 14 projects during her pregnancy. She had attended every prenatal appointment. She had prepared the nursery, arranged pediatric care, and maintained full professional function until the day she went into labor. Cole's fragile argument lasted approximately 1 week before he quietly withdrew it. The financial misconduct piece was harder to make disappear. $63,000 funneled through company accounts. Derek's partners, Freed and Bellwether, had retained their own counsel by the time Patricia formally notified them. Marcus Freed, I was told, had not taken the news calmly. Jonah Bellwether had said very little, which was apparently worse. Derek's company was not going to collapse, but it was going to hurt. The partners were demanding a full audit, a restructured operating agreement, and personal repayment from Derek. Cole was managing 3 separate legal situations simultaneously and charging Derek accordingly. The cream suit was getting expensive. The footage went public on a Wednesday, 3.5 weeks after the filing. It wasn't Elena who released it. I want to be clear about that. It wasn't me, and it wasn't Patricia, and it wasn't Trish or Marcus Deal. It was a woman named Sonia Prescott. Sonia was the daughter of the foundation that had hosted the Gala, the Prescott Foundation, her family's charitable organization. She was 38, ran the foundation's communications, and had been at the event that night. She had seen Derek and Paige. She had also apparently seen the ambulance report the next morning, connected the timing, and spent 3 weeks sitting on what she knew. What pushed her over the edge was a call she received from one of Derek's friends, a man who attended the gala, who had heard about the divorce filing, and who had called Sonia to ask whether the foundation could put out a statement of support for Derek, given his long relationship with the Prescott family. Sonia declined, and then she called Trish. I found out about it 20 minutes before the footage went live on Sonia's personal Instagram, a carefully worded post, no names initially, describing what she had witnessed at her family's event, the discrepancy between the ambulance timestamp and a guest's behavior, the phone check, the exit time. She didn't name Derek directly. She didn't have to. His friends were in the comments identifying him within 40 minutes. Trish's photographs, which Sonia had obtained with Trish's permission and which Trish had not told me about in advance, a conversation Trish and I had later that was direct and uncomfortable, were attached, time-stamped. "Are you okay?" I asked. "I'm fine," she said. "Her okay?" I asked. "I'm fine," she said. Her voice was measured. "Is this a problem legally?" I thought about it. Not for us. It might complicate things for him. "Is there anything I need to do?" "Say nothing publicly. Let Patricia handle any press inquiries. Don't post anything." "Okay." "Elena, are you actually okay?" A pause, longer than usual. "I'll call you later," she said. She didn't call until that evening. By then the post had been shared several thousand times, and 3 local news accounts had picked up the story without naming names, but with enough detail that anyone in their social circle knew exactly who was being discussed. Derek's phone, I imagined, was not quiet. Elena called me at 8:47 that night. She was crying. Not the controlled brightness I'd seen in the hospital, not the flat voice and the fist curling on the blanket. Actually crying, the kind that catches in the throat and doesn't stop cleanly. I didn't say anything at first, just stayed on the line. After a minute, she said, "I'm sorry." "Don't be sorry," I said. "I'm supposed to be." She stopped, tried again. "I planned everything. I did everything right, and I still—" Her voice broke again. I sat with that. "He bought her a ring, Diane." Her voice was raw. 7 years. Sofia isn't even 2 months old, and he was already— "I know. I keep thinking about the lemon tree." She laughed once, wet and short. "I planted it because I thought I was staying, because I thought we were building something. And the whole time he was—" She couldn't finish the sentence. I understood. The plan had kept her moving for 11 months. There's a kind of grief that planning holds at a distance. You focus on the steps, the documents, the sequences, the strategy, and the actual loss stays just outside the door. You don't let it in because you can't afford to. But the filing was done. The papers were served. The footage was public, the machinery was in motion, and it didn't need her to keep cranking it anymore, and so the door opened. "Elena," I said, "you're allowed to be devastated. That's not a weakness. That doesn't undo anything you built." She was quiet for a moment. "Sofia's asleep," she said. Her voice was a little steadier. "She slept for 4 hours straight today, first time." "That's good," I said. "She makes this sound when she's falling asleep, like a—" Elena paused, "like a little sigh, like everything is fine." "Everything's going to be fine," I said. "I know." A beat. "I know. I just need tonight to not be fine. Does that make sense?" "Complete sense," I said. "Take tonight, all of it. I'll be here in the morning." I heard her exhale, long and slow. "Thank you," she said. "Stop thanking me," I said. She almost laughed. "Old habit." We stayed on the phone for a while after that without saying much. She moved around her house. I could hear her footsteps, the sound of the kitchen, a drawer opening and closing. At some point she made tea, I think, the ordinary sounds of a life continuing. Before she hung up, she said, "Diane, I need to talk to him." I went still. "Derek?" "Yes." "Elena? Not for the case, not for strategy. I just—" She paused. "I need to say something to him that isn't in a legal document. I need him to hear something from me. Directly." I thought about it, weighed it. "I can't stop you, but I need to know before it happens." "I know," she said. "I'll tell you first." And it can't be anything that... Diane, I'm not going to blow 11 months of work in one conversation. Give me some credit. I smiled at the ceiling. Fair enough. Good night, she said. Good night, Elena. She called Derek the next morning and asked him to come to the house that Saturday. He said yes without asking why, which told me something about where his head was. A man who was fully in fighting mode doesn't agree to private conversations without consulting his attorney first. He was off balance. The footage, the public attention, his partner's anger, something in the structure of his confidence was cracked. He showed up at 10. I was not there. Elena had asked me not to be, and I respected that. But Camila was in the guest casita in the backyard. Elena had asked her to stay the night Friday, and she'd agreed to remain there unless Elena texted her otherwise. Elena told me about the conversation that afternoon. She said she opened the door, and he looked tired, older than she'd seen him look before. The easy confidence was still there, but it was working harder than usual, the way a light looks brighter right before the power goes out. She had Sofia in her arms. He looked at the baby for a moment before he looked at Elena. She let him in. They sat in the living room, not the kitchen, not at the table where they'd eaten dinner for 7 years. The formal room, that's with the distance of it. She said she told him 3 things. First, she told him she knew about Paige before she was pregnant, that she'd known for almost a year before the night of the gala, that his belief that he'd been discreet was not accurate. She said the color left his face when she said that. Second, she told him that Sofia was going to know her father, that Elena would not use their daughter as a weapon, that if Derek actually showed up the way a father shows up, not the way a husband performs, Sofia would have him in her life, that this was a choice he needed to make consciously and keep making. She said he nodded. His jaw was tight, but he nodded. Third, she told him she forgave him. She said it the way she said everything, level, looking directly at him, not because he deserved it and not because it was easy, but because she had decided that carrying the weight of it was a cost she wasn't willing to pay. She had too much to build. She had a daughter. She had a firm. She had a lemon tree in the backyard that was going to give fruit in 2 years. She didn't need to carry him. She said something moved through his face when she said it, something she couldn't name. His eyes got wet, actually wet, not performed. He pressed his fingers to his mouth for a moment. He said he was sorry. She said she knew, and then she stood up, still holding Sofia, and she said, "I think you should go now." He went. She called me when his car left the driveway. "How do you feel?" I asked. She thought about it. "Empty," she said. "But the good kind, like when you put something heavy down." I understood that completely. "Get some rest," I said. "Because next week is going to be busy." "I know," she said, and for the first time in a long time, she sounded like someone walking toward something instead of away from it. Raymond showed up at the house that Sunday with a casserole his housekeeper had made. Green chili chicken, Elena told me, the kind Derek had grown up eating. He stood on the porch and held it out and said he understood if she didn't want him to come in. She opened the door wider and let him in. He stayed for 2 hours. He held Sofia for most of it. Elena said he was different in a way she didn't have language for yet, quieter, more careful, like a man who had looked at something clearly for the first time and was still adjusting to the view. He didn't say much about Derek. He said one thing. "I raised him wrong in some ways. I see that now. I'm sorry you paid for it." Elena told me she didn't know what to do with that. She wasn't ready to absolve him, but she was willing to let him be Sofia's grandfather. She told him so. He thanked her in a way that didn't sound like a man used to thanking people. When he left, he paused at the door and looked back at the house, the living room, the kitchen beyond it, the lemon tree visible through the back window. "You've built something good here," he said. Elena looked at her house, at what she'd made of it. "I know," she said. The settlement was finalized on a Thursday morning in Patricia Wren's conference room in Tucson. 4 people at the table, Patricia and me on one side, Cole Sharp and his associate on the other. Derek was not present. Elena had asked Patricia whether he needed to be, and Patricia had said no. Diane and Elena had said good. It took 3 hours and 20 minutes. Elena got the house in Paradise Valley. The full equity, bought out at current market value, which in that neighborhood meant a number that made Cole's associate write something down and underline it. She got primary physical custody of Sofia with liberal visitation for Derek, structured and specific, with a provision for modification as Sofia got older. She got child support calculated at the upper end of Arizona's guidelines given Derek's income. She got a settlement payment covering her contribution to marital assets, including the down payment she'd documented, the household expenses she'd carried during the years her firm's income exceeded his, and a portion of the appreciation on investments they'd held jointly. Glenn's financial misconduct report didn't appear in the settlement documents directly. That was a separate matter between Derek and his partners, but it informed every number on every page in ways that Cole understood and couldn't fight effectively because the documentation was airtight. Rhea's design was untouched. Elena's firm was hers, had always been hers, and would remain entirely hers. She had structured it that way from the first day she filed the business paperwork, 4 years ago, with a clarity that looked like foresight because it was. Cole pushed back on 2 items. Patricia held on both. At 12:43, Derek's signature appeared on the final page via DocuSign. Cole's associate showed Patricia the confirmation screen. Patricia slid the folder to me. I reviewed the confirmation, signed off on the representation documents. "Gee, that's done," Patricia said. Her voice was even, professional. But when she looked at me across the table, there was something in her expression that was not quite a smile, but was in the same neighborhood. I called Elena from the parking lot. "It's done," I said. The line was quiet for a moment. "Okay," she said. Same word she always used, but this time it sounded different, fuller, like a door closing gently on its own weight instead of being pushed shut. "How's Sofia?" I asked. "Asleep on my chest," Elena said. "She's been here for an hour. I can't put her down." "Don't," I said. "I won't." A pause. "Diane, thank you. I told you to stop." "I know what you told me." Her voice was warm. "I'm saying it anyway." I stood in a parking lot in Tucson, afternoon sun on my shoulders, and I let her say it. "You're welcome," I said. The Castellano Group audit concluded 6 weeks later. The findings confirmed Glenn's report. $63,000 in personal expenses, plus an additional $14,000 that deeper examination uncovered in a secondary account Derek had apparently forgotten Glenn would find. Freed and Bellwether accepted Derek's personal repayment plan, restructured the operating agreement to require dual authorization on all expense accounts above $500, and removed Derek from 2 of the company's 3 project leadership committees. He kept his title. He kept his salary, reduced. He kept his name on the building, which I imagine was its own particular kind of daily reminder. Paige Whitmore, I heard through a mutual contact, had moved back to her family's home in Charlotte about a month after the Gala footage went public. The Instagram post with the ring had been deleted. Her account was private. I didn't follow up on that. It wasn't relevant to anything I was managing, and Elena had never asked me to. Reyes Design got the call in early winter. A development company out of Tempe was building a mixed-use residential community in the East Valley. 48 units, sustainable design focus, community green spaces, rooftop solar on every building. They'd looked at 6 firms. They wanted Elena. She called me the afternoon she got the offer. "How big?" I asked. She told me the contract number. I sat down. "Elena." "I know," she said. And she laughed, really laughed, the kind that comes from somewhere deep and unguarded. I hadn't heard that laugh in a long time. It sounded like the version of her from 12 years ago in a study room at Arizona State, and before everything, when she was just a woman who loved to build things. "Are you going to take it?" I asked, which was a ridiculous question. "I already said yes," she said. I laughed too. She said she'd told her team that afternoon. 4 architects, 2 drafters, an office manager named Bet, who had been with her from the beginning and had brought a cake to the office the day the divorce was finalized. Just appeared with it. No explanation, chocolate with white frosting, set it on the conference table and said I felt like cake today. Elena said she'd cried a little at that cake. Just a little. Bet had pretended not to notice, which was why Elena was never going to let Bet leave. The new project meant hiring. She was looking at 2 more architects, possibly a project manager. She was going to need a larger office space. She was already drawing preliminary concepts in her sketchbook at night after Sofia went down. The same sketchbook she'd carried since college, its spine soft and cracked from years of use. Building something, still. Again. Bigger. I went to the house in Paradise Valley on a Sunday afternoon in late winter. Elena had made pozole, a big pot of it, her mother's recipe, the red kind with hominy and shredded chicken and dried chilies she ordered from a market in Guadalajara, because she said the ones at the regular grocery store weren't right. Camilla was there. Camilla's husband, a quiet man named Terrence, who taught high school history and made everyone feel immediately comfortable, was in the living room with Sofia doing what he called the airplane game, which was just holding her up in the air while she looked at the ceiling with enormous, serious eyes. Sofia was 3 months old. She had Elena's dark eyes and her own particular expression, watchful, like she was taking notes. Elena's mother, Rosa, had flown in from Guadalajara for the week. She was a small woman with Elena's same posture and a way of moving through a kitchen that made it clear she was in charge of it, regardless of whose kitchen it was. She had taken over the stove from Elena approximately 7 minutes after arriving, and Elena had let her, which told me everything about how Elena was doing. We ate around the kitchen table, Rosa, Elena, Camilla, Terrence, me, and Sofia in her bouncy chair on the floor between Elena and Camilla's chairs where both of them could look at her. Rosa made the sign of the cross before we ate and said a prayer in Spanish. Then she served everyone without asking what they wanted, which was the right move because the pozole was extraordinary. We talked about the new project. Terrence asked good questions about the design parameters, and Elena answered them with the particular energy she got when she was talking about work she cared about. Hands moving, leaning forward, explaining sight lines and green space ratios like they were the most interesting things in the world. Because to her, they were. Rosa watched Elena while she talked, the way mothers watch, not evaluating, just seeing her. After dinner, while Camilla and Terrence did dishes and Rosa gave Sofia a bottle, Elena took her pozole bowl out to the back patio. I followed with my wine. The sun was low. The pool caught the last of the light and scattered it. The yard was warm and still, the particular stillness of a winter evening in Phoenix when the heat is finally backed off enough to sit outside comfortably. The lemon tree was in the far corner. It was taller than I'd expected. The branches had filled out over the winter, green and dense, and on several of the lower branches, small and yellow-green and unmistakably real, there were lemons. Not many. First fruit. But there. Elena was looking at it. I stood next to her and looked at it too. "You said 3 years," I said. "Almost exactly," she said. I counted back in my head. She'd planted it right around the time she found the hotel receipt. Right around the time she'd said I'm playing the long game, and I hadn't known yet what she meant. She'd known then. Even then, on standing in the yard with a marriage that was already cracking underneath her, she'd put something in the ground and said, "In 3 years, this will give fruit." She'd been right. She was always right about the long game. I didn't say any of this out loud. I just stood next to her and looked at the tree. After a moment, she said quietly, "I want to take one into Sofia. Show her." "She's 3 months old," I said. "She can't see a lemon." "She can see yellow," Elena said. "I thought about that." Fair point. Elena set her bowl on the patio table and walked across the yard barefoot, the grass cool and slightly damp under the winter sky. She reached up and twisted one of the lemons from the branch. It came free cleanly. She turned it in her hands for a moment. Then she walked back across the yard toward the house, holding the lemon. And the kitchen light was on inside, warm and yellow through the window, and I could see Rosa's silhouette moving and hear Camilla's voice. And somewhere in there was Sofia. Elena paused at the back door and looked over her shoulder at me. She was backlit by the kitchen light, lemon in her hand, barefoot in her own yard. "Come inside," she said. "There's more pozole." I followed her in. That spring, Rhea's design broke ground on the East Valley project. Elena stood at the site in a hard hat and work boots, Sofia strapped to her chest in a carrier, and watched the first foundation pour. Sofia, 4 months old and unimpressed by machinery, fell asleep halfway through. Derek showed up for his first scheduled visitation that same month, on time, which Elena noted. He held Sofia carefully, like something he was still learning how to carry. But he was learning. Elena had decided to let him. The lemon tree gave 17 lemons that year. Elena made tarts.